What's going on, everyone? So Stu Macher, a lot of people believe he is going to be back and reprise his role as Ghostface in the upcoming Scream, and that's a very real possibility. That is something that could absolutely happen. We do know, and we have confirmation, that Matthew Lillard is returning to the Scream franchise and is reprising his role as Stu Macher. To what capacity, that is what we don't know. Is he actually coming back as Ghostface? Is he coming back as a hallucination, right? Like we saw with Billy. Is he coming back in a flashback sequence? Is it just going to be his voice, right? Because we have several other Ghostface that are returning, from Scott Foley, who played Roman, right? And it's very possible that it could just be simply the voice, right? And just you have the voice changer, and they're going to kind of use that as a way to kind of, manipulate all these various ghost faces being in the upcoming Scream movie. But we'll see, right? Another real option, and it's something that I've talked about in the past. I mean, I talked about going into Scream 6, and now I think it's even more likely that this is the case, that instead of Stu returning as Ghostface, right, I can very much see it being his sister. So Leslie Macher was established in Scream 5. Before Scream 5, we didn't even know he had another sister that was out there, but she was established. She is there. She is alive. And we have yet to see about her or hear about her or anything. We have no idea who she is, what she is, anything, right? And, she is a very important character who also lost her son, Vince, and all that stuff, right? So there is motive. There is reason that you could argue her being Ghostface in this upcoming Scream movie. And there was even talks about, could she return? Could she be the Ghostface in the upcoming Scream 6? And, there was, rumored Scream 7 scripts going around that Leslie and Christina Carpenter, that the two of them would team up and be Ghostface and stuff. And, obviously with Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega's departure, I don't think that they'll go the Christina Carpenter route. I don't think that that's the approach that they'll take, but they could definitely do the Leslie Macher approach. Now, I've seen a lot of people talk about how maybe Leslie Macher is, Sidney's neighbor or something like that. The problem with that is, Sidney would know who his sister is, right? So, I don't think that she could be her neighbor or anything. I understand it's been a long time. It's been many years. But, you'd imagine Sidney would. I mean, Sidney recognized Mrs. Loomis, right? That's why Mrs. Loomis was avoiding Sidney, right? Gail didn't recognize her, but Sidney immediately was like, Mrs. Loomis, right? And, done a bunch of plastic surgery and stuff like that later. And, but she still was able to recognize it because she was familiar with her. She knew who she was. Right? So you'd imagine, and again, Woodsboro was a small town and stuff. It wasn't this big city where it's she probably never met her or anything. So I don't think that is the case, but she could be maybe the mastermind. She could be somebody behind the scenes operating that's been kind of keeping an eye on Sidney and stuff. There's a lot of talks and rumors about there being a potential cult. And if you go the cult route, right, maybe Leslie Macher is the head of the cult. That is something that they could do. That could be something very interesting. But regardless, my thought process with the Leslie Macher thing is, I think what you could do is you could set up and establish to where maybe it appears that Stu's returned, and Stu is kind of the ultimate red herring. And you have these clues and all these little points and stuff where it's oh, Stu's back. Maybe even Sidney and them think it's Stu. There's no way Stu's back. He died. We all know he died. Blah, 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 blah. And then in the end, it's revealed that no, it's not Stu. It's actually his sister, Leslie. Right? And that she's the one that's doing it. And, maybe, she's using the ghost face changer. And maybe you get little flashback scenes with Stu and Leslie and stuff. And maybe Leslie always knew Stu was involved and stuff, right? There's a lot of ways that you can kind of tie in Leslie Macher into the Stu scenario, because they're brother and sister, right? And Leslie would have motive. Leslie would have, motivation because of, Vince Schneider right? That was his name in the Scream 5. But I think you could have a I think you could have that approach to where, it's not like it appears that it's Stu, but it's not Stu. And then, but the whole time it's kind of like the red herring. It's like, oh, it's got to be Stu. Stu's back. Stu has, returned, and, he's been hiding out. He's the mastermind, and blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, no, it's actually Leslie Macher. That's why it seemed like it was Stu. And then also, she wants revenge for her son Vince. Vince ends up dying, and she could look and blame Sidney, right? Like, this is all your fault. Like, everything happened because of you. Like, if my brother would still be here, my son would still be here, right? I let it go after, because the big question would be like, why after all this time is Leslie now getting her revenge? Why after all this time is Leslie now going after Sidney? Well, if it's like, well, because, I let it go because of my brother and whatever, but then my son died. And I had to deal with that in the aftermath and picking up the pieces and, I lost my husband and, all, my family time and time again keeps being ruined because of you, whatever, right? Like you could make that connection. And then now it's not as far, it'd still be pretty far, but it's not as far removed, right? And, you could argue she's plotting for a couple years, right? Trying to get the best time and get people to go after her and all of that. And I think that could be an approach, and that would also be a way to kind of tie in Stu. Maybe you get some, like I said, some flashback sequences, or maybe Leslie sees Stu or something like that, or she believes she's like possessed by the essence of Stu or whatever. Again, you can't explain crazy, but you could have kind of the Stu connection, the Stu tie-in, and all that stuff, without it actually being Stu. And it's Leslie Macher. You have an easy explanation, an easy motive, an easy reason as to why she's doing what she's doing. You have a character that was established already, character that ties in to Scream 5, right? So it is kind of like the bridge between that and then now the Sidney pickup and stuff. So I do think I think you could argue that might be the most likely scenario, right? Like, especially with Stu returning and Stu expected to kind of have a major significance. There's a lot of rumors going around that, like, hey, Stu's going to have a major significance in this upcoming Scream movie, but not to the level that people think. Okay, well, if that's true, obviously everything's a rumor until it's true. But if that's the truth, then, okay, well, then how do you kind of make that connection? Okay, well, it's not really Stu, it's Leslie, his sister, and and then that's the connection. But again, just a thought, something that, we've explored and talked about in the past, but I think now's a good time to kind of bring this back up because, we know Matthew Lillard, for certain, Matthew Lillard is in this upcoming Scream movie. We just don't know to what degree. And are they actually going to finally bring Stu back? Possibility, they could. But I think another approach would be, again, bringing back, bringing in and introducing Leslie Macher, and that's the connection. But let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. As always, this is a discussion. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you think that, that's probably the most likely approach? Do you want that approach? Do you want a different approach? Again, however you feel, or whatever your thoughts are. Either way, I would love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. It's me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel. What are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.